Hi, and welcome to the second course of the Transform Recruitment Marketing Certification. This is RM102, Define, Activate, Amplify, bringing your employer brand to life. We're excited to welcome you to the second of 9 courses, especially designed to deepen your knowledge of recruitment marketing, whether you are brand new to the craft or have years of experience. This course will run approximately 60 minutes. At the conclusion of today's course, we recommend taking the practice assessment to reinforce what you've learned. Leading this course, we have Tracy Parsons, Vice President of Smashfly's Recruitment Marketing Center of Excellence, where she helps customers shift their recruiting focus from the transactional to the transformational. As a recruitment marketing practitioner and consultant, she brings to the table extensive experience in digital development, client strategy, and brand development. She's spoken at the Social Recruiting Strategies Conference, eBrandCon, and Transform. A pioneer of the recruitment marketing movement, Tracy is passionate about teaching teams to implement branded, measurable, and actionable digital marketing strategies. Without further ado, Tracy, take it away.
Thank you so much, Rob. Hey, everybody in the tribe. Welcome to 102. I hope you guys had a really good couple weeks off and you're ready to learn. As Rob said, this is the second in our 9-course curriculum, and it's really designed to get you recruitment marketing certified. And this course specifically is 100% all about the employer brand, how we define it, how we can activate it, and how we can make it live and breathe it to life. Like all of our other courses, this course is scheduled for 1 hour, so buckle up and let's get ready to learn. Let's talk a moment about what makes up recruitment marketing certification. As I mentioned earlier, there are 9 courses. Each course has a practical quiz associated with it that is really designed to test your knowledge. Those quiz scores do not carry into your final exam. They're just to really make sure that you got what we were talking about. The final exam is going to cover every single thing that we talked about in all of the 9 courses. And it will be available for you after you've taken or listened to the final course in December. But before we get started into the course curriculum a little deeper, we've had some people reach out to us, and we wanted to know if this became part of a certification and it was part of another organization, what organization would you like this to be part of? So let us know. Why don't you guys vote? I'm going to close the poll in 5. And closed. Let's see what everybody thought. Oh, great. A lot for sure. Fantastic. Well, we're going to keep track of that information so that we can get the most, and you can get the most out of this education. Again, this is a pilot, so we're testing this. And at the end of this curriculum, this is what we hope happens, right? So we want you guys, you early adopters out there, to be that spark that really sets your recruitment marketing engine on fire. We want to make sure that you're also advancing your career and becoming that leader in this really new and emerging discipline of recruitment marketing. So you guys are the innovators. And I'm just crazy excited that you're here and that you're ready to learn. And finally, your feedback is insanely important to us. And you'll see that we've incorporated some of your feedback from 101 into 102. We completely intend to do that. That's what we're asking for. We want to make sure that this continues to be amazing for you guys as well as your future peers that are going to take this course in the second wave. So this is our curriculum, the 100s. We kicked that off a couple weeks ago with Recruitment Marketing 101. Today we're talking about employer brands. All of this is listed with the live course information, so you can plan accordingly. But we're also going to make sure that you're going to have great recommendations out of this. So if you were able to do the recommendations from the first course, go ahead and raise your hand. Let us know what you did. Did you do any of those do this tomorrow? Yay! Congrats, team. That's awesome. And then in the 200 series, we're going to dive deep. So we're going to take this, even deeper. When we talk about content, we talk about nurturing, we talk about digital. And at the end, we want you guys to be equipped to develop your own recruitment marketing strategy and framework. And that's what we want to have happen after this series. And when this all happens, again, you can take these live or you can binge them however you want. So I love that you guys are here live. It makes it more fun. But if you miss it, you can always take any of these courses on demand because you're already registered. The courses are designed to be appropriate for everyone. So there might be some of you who are brand new to recruitment marketing. There might be some of you who are just, in their first couple years of it. And finally, we've got some really experienced people taking this curriculum. We want to make sure that we are addressing all of these audiences. So we want to make sure that everybody has something that they can learn. So tell me a little bit about your experience. I'm going to close this poll in 5. Nice. A lot of experience here, so hopefully there'll be a lot for you guys to learn in here too. Just like our last course, in today's session, we're going to have very specific recommendations, and we call those Do This Tomorrow. So what we want this to do is we want you to take this material and bring it to life in your day-to-day work. Shortly after this session ends, you're going to receive a document that's going to outline all of these recommendations, as well as a list of suggested blogs to follow and articles to read. And let's dive in, right? It's time. Let's get going. So today's session, again, focused 100% on the employer brand. We're going to first describe what an employer brand is and the elements that it consists of, and then we'll talk a little bit about channels and how you can take that channel strategy and bring it to life. And finally, we're going to look a little bit about how you're going to manage that employer brand, because unfortunately, it is not a set it and forget it moment. It is something that is consistently should be on your radar, that you can monitor and maintain so that your employer brand is always authentic and real for your target audience. Remember, the main concept we introduced in the first of the recruitment marketing courses, it's this. It's modern recruitment marketing. Essentially, well, it breathes life into your employer brand. And we saw how we need to continually promote the brand. It's the center of what it is that we're doing in recruitment marketing. It's all about that brand. It's about how we can be proactive first and advertise last, how we can make sure that we're brand driven and that the job isn't the centerpiece, but it's the brand, it's who you are. And then lastly, making those decisions based on data and that monitoring and adjusting. And when we talk about tomorrow's model, it's about still promoting that brand, and that brand lives at the center of your modern recruitment marketing, so it becomes more predictive and automated. We also talked in the last class of the best practice of being brand-led. We spent a good amount of time on that in the last session, especially this brand-led concept. And today, what we want is to really give you a better understanding of exactly what that means. So why is an employer brand important? I mean, in today's candidate-driven market, that positive, really well-defined employer brand is what is going to be essential to not only attracting great new talent, but retaining the talent that already sits in your walls. And we saw in our first class that, I mean, a brand-led organization is going to see a 50% reduced cost per hire and a 26% reduction in turnover. It matters. According to Glassdoor research, 69% of active job seekers are likely to apply to a job if the employer actively manages that employer brand. So again, it's not about creating it and setting it and forgetting it. It matters that we're managing it to the candidate audience. And 83% of nearly 4,000 HR leaders across the globe believe that the employer brand has a significant impact on their ability to hire great talent. Because what you don't want is this. You don't want your customers guessing what's under door number 3. Yeah, we can share salary at an appropriate time, and we can certainly spell out our benefits and perks on the site, but that guessing of door number 3, it's not working for us, and it's not going to work for us because they're not going to make that leap. So you might be thinking, well, what really is our employer brand? And I like to think Jeff Bezos, for me, at Amazon has the best definition. He said, your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. And really what that means to me is that your company, you already have an employer brand. You may have made zero efforts to define it and communicate it, but it already exists. And if you can't express your employer brand now, the good news is the goal of this class is that you'll be able to express it, have some semblance of control over it, and ultimately use it to grow your employer brand and your candidate audience. Let's have another poll. Do you guys think that you have a defined employer brand? We'll close it in 5. Good news, right? But if you don't think that, again, we'll want your feedback to see if you got any closer. Your employer brand is fundamentally based on who you are as an employer. And it's reflected in how your audience perceives you as well. It's got to be true, defensible, and authentic. And an employer brand is really comprised of 3 parts. The first one, what do you aspire to be? What is your big, hairy, audacious goal as an organization or as an employer? What do you want to be when you grow up? The second is the perception piece. What do people think about you? What does your brand audience, your corporate brand audience really think of your company? And then understanding how that translates when we're talking about talent. And lastly, it's overlaid with who you really are as an organization. And it's where these 3 things intersect. That, my friends, is the distillation of your employer brand. Now, far too frequently, I've seen this happen. You're developing your employer brand, and you might forget to talk about that perception piece. It's the hardest one to get in our mind's eye, right? We can all figure out who we aspire to be and who we really are. That's not that hard, right? That's just an exercise in talking to people and documenting things. But sometimes we forget to gut check with our target audience. And it always makes me think about this example. A few years back, you guys might remember a marketing campaign in Las Vegas, and they were trying really hard to get it to be where Vegas is for families. And Vegas spent a good chunk of the 90s trying to attract families into the area, and they really wanted to transform themselves into a kids-friendly kind of entertainment paradise. And it's really aspirational, right? It's what they aspired to be. And it was amazing because the ad campaign, well, it worked. Like, it generated a tremendous amount of buzz. And it looked like it was working really, really well until the people actually started coming with their kids. And then families came. And the total number of visitors to the city more than doubled in a decade. But those stakeholders, those casino owners, they found that the parents weren't spending very much time at the tables because they were engaging with their families. And those parents who did gamble sometimes left their children unattended in a very, very adult environment. If you've been to Vegas, you know the billboards and the pamphlets that I'm talking about. And so it ultimately didn't go over very well because it was really grounded in aspiration. It was who they wanted to be. I mean, that's who they wanted to be at the time. But it wasn't colored in the reality of the perception of who the audience thinks they are. And we all know that what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas campaign has been gangbusters. It's worked. But it's also that perfect example of those 3 brand principles in complete alignment. Reality, baked in aspiration, baked in perception. It worked. So let's look at a recruitment marketing example of Starbucks. Starbucks, well, I mean, they are always affirming their support for its employees and their commitment to being a really great and equitable international partner and global citizen. And in doing so, it's really smartly reaffirmed the employer brand as well as a company with a conscience. Starbucks knows exactly what their brand stands for in the minds of consumers and candidates. That's why they use this opportunity to build a strong employer brand that helps to increase employee satisfaction as well as customer confidence. Starbucks does an amazing job on all of their channels, and we'll get into channels in a few minutes. But let's take a look at this video. It talks about the Starbucks employer brand.
We're not just employees of Starbucks. I mean, we are Starbucks.
Being a Starbucks partner means everything to me. It's the connection, the people. It's all about my customers.
Our customers leave marks on our hearts and our minds, and hopefully we do the same to them.
I consider my partners at my store pretty much my second family.
Being my personal best means listening to my partners and responding in a way that makes their day.
There's opportunity for partners to expand beyond what they currently do.
Opportunity at Starbucks means knowing that there's always an area for growth. The benefit package is very important to me, whether it's our stock program.
Medical, dental, vision.
The fact that it's available for people who work only part-time is just amazing.
It's not just about selling coffee, it's about being involved in the community.
Every time there is a community event going on, I am the first one to sign up.
Being a partner, that's not just a word. It's a real sense of ownership. I've had so many opportunities to grow, and I felt nurtured in that partnership.
If you want to be part of something really big, this is the place to do it.
How many times did they say partner in that video? Like, they really bring home that whole message of what it means to be a Starbucks employee. And they carry it through in the video, in all of their channels, and it's consistency. Like, we talk about consistency in the last class. This is all about consistency. But we heard your feedback, and we know it's not all about the big brands out there. Let's talk about a smaller brand. One of my favorite employer brands is Buffer. They're a smaller startup, and they are a social sharing platform. And when I think about employer brands that really bring home their corporate brand into their employer brand, I always think of Buffer. Buffer is all about authenticity. Buffer is also all about transparency. And they take that so far, it just delights me in every single way possible. But this is what I mean by transparency. They publish their salaries on their recs. It's a range. They also will give you a link to your salary formula. So if you want transparency to be one of your brand tenets as a company, you have to convey that in as transparent a way as possible, in as many surprising ways as possible. And then they go the extra mile of roles that they're hiring for. They'll tell you the tentative timeline of this hire, when they're going to be able to, when they're accepting applications, when they're going to be reviewing it, and when they're going to be interviewing people. Buffer does a tremendous job of really communicating their employer brand, defending their employer brand, and making sure that it is who they are. It's also really grounded in aspiration, perception, and reality. When we talk about employer brands, for me, this is meaningful. How do you begin to measure that employer brand? Because the employer brand is not one size fits all. It's got to be unique. But it also has to be these things. You've got to be able to define it, defend it, and it's got to be differentiated. For example, if you have a cutthroat environment, and it's very evident Be honest about it and own it, because you want to attract those people that are going to thrive and flourish in that environment, not those that are going to be anxious and want to leave in a couple months. If that's who you are as a brand, just own it, because you'll find that you're attracting the people that are more likely to be aligned with it. Don't pretend to be something you're not. Understand your company culture and develop an employer brand that is wildly consistent with it. So again, I love a good cartoon. If you're walking around saying we're a great company to work for, that's not very definable. But if you walk around telling people that the work we do is changing the way people interact with the world, guess what? That's pretty defined. And if you're telling people that we're changing the way people work and how they interact with the world, here is specifically or exactly how, and you have examples to share with them, that's defensible. You can defend it because I'm showing you the reasons to believe. And lastly, if you're talking about your people sharing a common purpose to change the way that the world works, let me show you these reasons to believe. Now we're talking differentiation. So let's look at another brand, REI. If you're a member of an REI co-op, you know what the co-op is all about. And the co-op is really, in their employer brand, you've got to be able to articulate it. You go back to this site and you see that it's about community, riffing on their co-op, shared values, not share value, and getting outside. And they want to be very plain with the people. They want to tell them what's in it for them. It's absolutely defined. And when you talk about defensible, these are your reasons to believe. If you're telling me that we're an inclusive and welcoming community, and then you show me statistics of men and women in the co-op, in the organization, and in leadership positions, you're defending that. You're showing us the reasons to believe. And that makes a huge difference. Now, I've got something to say about differentiation, and I talk to a lot of brands, and I talk to a lot of customers and a lot of people in my years of doing this. And when we talk about employer brand, far too frequently we come back to, well, the difference is really our people. And, well, you've got a great opportunity to work with an outstanding company. I am sure everybody on this webcast could tell me that their people are the difference and that their company is an outstanding company. But it's not good enough. What is it about your people that make them amazing for you? When you understand that essence of what makes your people amazing for you, that's where you plug into the differentiation. So it's not about your people making the difference. It's about how your people make the difference. And what that difference is communicated really elegantly in REI's campaign. They did a great video. One of the things that makes them different is, again, they care about the outdoors. They care about getting people out to play. So how does that manifest itself in its employer brand? Well, they have this wonderful program called Yay Days. And 2 times a year, all employees get paid days off, 2 paid days off every year to go outside and enjoy the outdoors.
As a co-op, we believe an outdoor life is a life well lived. And nobody loves to get outside more than REI employees. They snowshoe, hike, bike, build trails, and yes, even get engaged outdoors. And what did these adventures all have in common? They were experienced on Yay Days, a special way for REI to celebrate its employees and encourage them to reconnect with the outdoors.
An REI Yay Day is a paid day off for all employees to get outside and play or do a stewardship project. You get 2 Yay Days a year, so every 6 months you get a free outdoor hall pass.
I think it's great. I think it really kind of reminds people why they love REI, why I love working at REI, and I think that transfers to helping people in the store.
Last year we had almost 3/4 of the entire co-op take a yay day. We've had people do stewardship projects where they might clean up a coastline or do trail maintenance. You can also take an outdoor programs class. There are tons of things that you can do outside.
My first yay day I spent with PCC Farmland Trust, and it was an opportunity to eliminate some invasive blackberries on a farm in Oregon.
I went road biking with my family. It was amazing. It was a crisp fall day, sun shining, and I remember thinking as the wind was hitting my face, I can't believe I'm getting paid to do this.
No matter how Yay Days get used, every one is a chance for REI employees to enjoy their passion for the outdoors.
Yay Day!
Learn more at rei.com/stewardship.
We see their people enjoying the employer brand. It's all the reasons to believe, and it's differentiated. It's defined, it's defended, it's differentiated, and it works. So how do you validate your brand? Well, I've got some easy tips for you, because sometimes you can bring in a third party, you can bring in an agency, you can bring in a partner to do this work for you, and that works. It is a great exercise. It's really important. But I also know what it's like to not have that kind of budget, because here at Smashfly, I'm the owner of the employer brand. And so these are some of the things that I've done with customers that don't have big budgets, to go in and bring in somebody to do this for you. If you want to understand your organization's aspirations, go interview your leaders. Ask them what they hope to get in the next 5 to 10 years as a company. Ask them what they aspire to be as an employer. Then take that aspiration note and go talk to your team. Really kind of silo your high performers, talk to everybody, but really pay attention to your high performers, the people you want to recruit more of. And this is going to give you a really strong sense of the reality. So you can take a look at the aspiration and the reality and overlay those two things. But as I mentioned earlier, you can't stop there. So one of the things that you could do is craft up some of these messages that really highlight your employer brand in the aspiration and in the reality of it. And use social media. Use your Twitter. Use Facebook, LinkedIn. Put some messages out there and test for perception. Now, there are risks for this model because sometimes we forget to test for perception. So, I'm not saying hiring an agency is a bad idea. I'm saying that it's a very good idea, but there are sometimes when it's precluded by budget. So there are opportunities to do this for yourselves and validate your brand using the people that you already know and already trust, as well as the target audience of followers that you've already paid to attract. So when you're looking at your own employer brand, what do you think? Do you think your own employer brand is definable, defensible, differentiated? None? Not sure? What do you think? I'm going to close the poll in 5. Makes sense, right? It's not easy to do these 3 things, and it's something that I want everybody to pay attention to as we move through this class. So let's get to our first do this tomorrow. Let's take an inventory, right? Get out a piece of paper. Write down what you think your purpose is. What is your reason why as an employer? Write it down. And then next to that, put 3 stories that would validate that. That statement validated by 3 stories. And these are your reasons to believe, right? That we believe this is true because of these 3 executions, how it worked out. And then for each story, try to find what's different about your company versus another company. Because if you put a piece of paper over your logo or your why and you tell those stories and you think it could be anybody else, that's not differentiated enough. And again, don't be afraid to hire a professional to look at this. And they're going to be willing to help you and ready to help you. But I also don't want you to look at this as a hole in your budget. But I want you to look at this as an increase in your overall talent acquisition efforts. So we've got this employer brand. We've got it defined. We've got it written out. It feels kind of good. We're getting some points around differentiation. We know our reasons to believe. We've got those all handled. But that's not it, right? So my dear friend at Intel, Lynn Bailey, will tell you it's never done. And it can be incredibly daunting and kind of terrifying to think that it's never done, but it's never done. And we really want to take these concepts and bring them to life, right? So we have to take a look at that journey. And we talked about this in the first class. You know, we talked about how we, as recruitment marketing professionals, think about that candidate journey as linear, right? So it's kind of like a sausage grinder. A candidate comes in, the best ones come out. And that's not really the reality of what our candidates experience. So they're going to take a look at everything that we're doing. They could be looking at job ads, emails, blog posts, social feeds, even curated content, and make assessments about you. They're going to look at this on multiple touch points, all kinds of channels. And they're going to take a look at these and realize that I need more. Because that's what they want. They want more. They have higher expectations of work in their career than ever before. So when we're talking about communicating this audience across this entire journey, we've got to look at channels that are paid, earned, and owned. So we're going to dive deep into these three pretty quickly. And when you have that strong employer brand and you've gotten really good at implementing activities that attract talent, such as job marketing or social, then it becomes easier. Then there's this clear message to a candidate of what you're looking for. So let's talk a little bit about owned first. Owned is pretty simple if you think about it. It's all of the properties that you may manage as a company. It's your career site. It's your corporate site. It's your career blog or your corporate blog. It's your CRM. It's your activities on social. It's all of those things that you control. And a strong brand can help companies to engage with candidates who are also interested in working for the right fit. So it enhances all the content on your career site and communication through mobile, through SMS, and all of that communication out about your brand that you own. These are great things because you can own this message. And when I look at brands like T-Mobile, you know exactly what you're getting when you talk with the uncarrier from a brand perspective on the consumer side or the employer side. It is all about being the uncarrier, and it's all about being magenta. And they talk a lot about what it means to be magenta. You see it on their blog. John Laguerre is such a great advocate for this brand as an employer and as a consumer brand. And he blogs about it. He blogs about what it means at T-Mobile and what T-Mobile is doing to be the uncarrier. They've got great instances on social. They've got a fantastic Instagram account. They've got great YouTube. And what T-Mobile did recently is they took all of that outwardly facing social stuff that you were like trying to attract more people in, and they flipped it around and they focused it on telling stories from the employee's point of view. So they have a lot of employee-generated content in T-Mobile, and when you visit their YouTube channel, they've got a video that tells you what it means. They take their consumer brand of bold and challenger all the way to the employer brand experience. And when they communicate that to all of their candidates, they're telling you exactly who fits in at this organization and what kind of characteristics you're going to need to be successful here. They do a tremendous job of screening people in and out. And I'm sure if you took that brand mark off of this, you would still know that it was T-Mobile. And there's another brand, Tableau. Tableau is a data company, so they do a lot of data visualization, and their career site is really remarkable, and it features their employees. They are all into data, obviously, or they wouldn't work there. And one of my favorite implementations of customer stories in the context, or candidate stories in the context of work, are these stories. And this is Clara, and she created this data viz, which is what they call it at Tableau, and it's the top love songs by state. And you can click through this and start exploring the top love songs by state. And they do this for all of their different talent. It tells you the story of you're going to be creative here, but you're going to ground it in the numbers. Another thing that I loved about their brand expression was this. Again, it's an infographic, it's data. That's how they're going to manifest themselves in this instance. And they're not big into meetings. So if you're a meeting type of person, this might not be the place for you. If you don't love meetings, hey, by the way, apply now. But they're going to share it with you in terms of data. And they're consistently highlighting their brand through the lens of the employee. They do it on Instagram beautifully. And lastly, when we talk about social, we had an Eclipse a couple weeks ago. They promote their employees on their corporate account by sharing the vizzes that they create. It's on brand. It works. And it highlights that employee story. So let's take a quick poll. What do you guys think you're doing in terms of owned? I'll be closing the poll in 5. Yeah, company and careers blog is hard. Great to see more emailing. That's awesome. I think we did a Fortune 500 research study last year, and I think it was 1% of the Fortune 500 are doing anything to candidates via email that include anything outside of jobs. So that's great to see that we're doing more email. And these are all really important components of making sure that that brand message gets out to as many people as possible on the channels that you control. So do this tomorrow. Check your own sources, right? So you guys just participated in that poll. Kind of document where you are in those. If you're not on the company blog or you don't have a career blog, start to lay the foundation for having that happen. Work with your marketing team on the company blog to see how you can start infusing some employee content into that exercise. Is your employer brand evident and consistent in each of these? And then again, start laying that foundation to improve your employer brand message across these owned channels, and then you'll be farther along for when we talk about 301, creating your framework. Let's talk a little bit about paid. These are the channels that you pay for outside of your own, technology and systems. And you can always be paying higher rates to be higher in web searches. There's paid job boards, there's free job boards, there's paid social, and then there's retargeting. So retargeting is like when those ads follow you around the internet. So like I've looked at some shoes on a website, and then I see those shoes 27 times that next day or that next week or that month. That's what we're talking about, retargeting. And we are going to cover a lot more on paid in Recruitment Marketing 104. So here's an example of Google. This just entertains me to no end. So Google has paid ads for Google on Google. But this is what I'm talking about. So when we talk about paid advertising, this is, cost per click. They're driving traffic. You're showing up first in search. That's what you're paying for. And we know how many searches for jobs start in that search engine box. So it's a good place to be. When we talk about paid social, you'll see it here where it says PwC US sponsored. It's sponsored in the Facebook feed. So they're paying to have this boosted and shown to a very targeted audience who's going to be interested in joining that independent workforce for meaningful projects. So that's how they're going to boost those results. And lastly, retargeting. So I like this infographic. It tells a nice story. So when we're talking about retargeting, it's saying that there's talent that has visited your career site, and they don't stay. They leave. They don't transact. They don't apply. They don't join the talent network, but they leave. And then they're, doing what they normally do. They might be on Facebook. They might be on news sites, and they're going to go where they go. And the idea here with retargeting is then serving up an ad for your site as they're surfing that web later in context of what they would be doing normally. And what we then do is then drive them back to capture their interest and ultimately nurture them. So that's fundamentally what retargeting is. And it's a great paid channel. I know a lot of brands are really starting to experiment and get very ingrained with retargeting, and it's showing great dividends for a lot of brands. So take a quick poll. What are you guys doing in terms of those paid channels? And you'll notice I didn't talk very much about job boards because job boards are what they are. All right, going to close the poll in 5. Very nice. So I think the key here is that you're going to want to have a good mix of paid, earned, and owned. And we'll talk a lot more about paid in 104. But this is kind of, I bet, what you all would expect to see. So when it comes to do this tomorrow, do an inventory. Take out that piece of paper. Take out a separate piece of paper from your brand exercise, and then start documenting. Okay, what are we doing in terms of search? Are we doing any paid search? You can do a little research on paid search to see how many people are searching for those keywords. So that's an opportunity that we will dive into later in the curriculum. What are you doing on job boards? Have you thought about retargeting? Is there an opportunity to learn more about that? Are you doing anything paid on social? And then you take a look at these paid channels. Again, you're checking to see if that employer brand is clear and to see if it's consistent. And once you see if it's clear and consistent, where your gaps are, then it's an opportunity to create that plan so that you are really covering your bases on the paid channels with that employer brand message. Let's talk about earned. Earned is interesting to me. Like, I've always found that earned might be one of the more interesting because earned channels are the things that you don't directly own or do, but they ultimately work for you, and you have to work for them. So you have to earn your position in any of these capacities, right? So these channels are really going to, a lot of times, reflect what other people think you are. In terms of reviews, it's a little bit of feedback from the marketplace. And awards, feedback from the industry. So those are things that you not need to think about when it's earned. You've earned it, but you've had to work for it. That's what earned is all about. So let's take a little more closely at some of these. So when we talk about SEO, it's really where you're showing up in search results. So you'll see that if you're doing a great job, your brand shows up with jobs pretty clearly. And if you're starting to master this new Google widget, you're showing up pretty well with those jobs and you're driving direct traffic to it. But you want to make sure that your brand is showing up with your name. It gets a little dicier when we're talking about maybe if you're hiring technology talent and you search for IT jobs. It's very hard to get a brand to show up there because the job boards really own that real estate. But it's not impossible, and it's something that you can work toward. But what you want to do in SEO is you want to have such great optimization of your owned properties that the engines are indexing you very high so that it all kind of adds up to that earning that spot in the top of the search results, because you really want to be on page 1. I've often heard the joke of, the best place to bury a dead body is on page 2 of Google. So make sure that you're working hard to get on page 1, and if you can get to that top spot, it's going to make all the difference. When we talk about awards, it's one thing to win an award, but it's yet another thing to make sure that you're communicating that out, right? So you've got to have those awards all over your career site. And they're that great moment of creating that outside sense of validation of your employer brand. And if you think about it, these awards carry a significant weight for communicating who you are to the people you want to attract. But it's not enough to put them on your career site. Get them an email. Get them in your social profiles. Get them on Glassdoor. Make sure you're tooting your own horn because nobody's going to toot it for you. It's not just enough to have it on your website. Use your awards across all of your own channels. And when it comes to reviews, reviews are kind of cool, and you've seen we sprinkled in a lot more smaller company examples here. I have a great story for this brand on the left, Cover My Meds. Cover My Meds is a Columbus, Ohio company, and whenever they have somebody that comes and interviews at the company, they hand them a card that calls specifically asking them to review the interview experience. That's the sort of thing that you're going to need to really engage in getting those reviews and getting yourself popping up at the top of those reviews. And Salesforce does the same thing. They really have a lot of reviews. They've harnessed those. They've got people out there, and the company and the employees feel great about it. Like, one of the things I will caveat this, be wary of the 5-star rating on review sites. It's a little scary. I've worked for a brand that had a 5-star rating, and we had a number of a number of candidates come and ask us if those were paid plans. So the 5-star review can be a little dicey, but ask for reviews. Have your employees do reviews. Get them out there. And what you can use is then you can start using this information to continually improve your employer brand. And when we talk about great employee advocacy programs, advocacy is the #1 thing that you can do to spread that out. And you've got to earn that too. The Muse, if we're all pretty familiar with the Muse, they're a career consultant and job search site. So they do a number of things to help employees get really involved in telling their brand story. They make sure all of their employees can talk elegantly about the great things that they do at the company with their friends from their first day on the job. They have the Muse brand book, and they give this book to every single employee when they join the company, and in it, it outlines who they are and really why the company was created. So if you give them the what to talk about, you also have to give them tools. And that's when we talk about amplification. So amplification is taking your internal audience, those people that work with you, and giving them tools and power and messages to send out to their networks. They're going to amplify your message, right? And so when we're talking about amplifying your message, there are a number of tools that you could use. We at Smashfly here use Social Toaster. And via Social Toaster, I can send recruitment marketing updates to everybody that works at Smashfly, and within one click, they can share this update out to their network. And because we do this, social has become the #1 source of hire for Smashfly because we're allowing our employees and empowering them to tell our story. So let's look at what you guys are doing in terms of earned. I'm going to close the poll in 5. Awesome. Very good. I was not expecting to see that high of reviews. That makes me very happy. Reviews are the modern golden egg, right? It's, how people make decisions, and they always believe people. So it's, I've said this 1,000 times, people believe people before they believe brands. That's why reviews and awards and, really all of these earned components are so important to our target audience. So for our Do This Tomorrow, take a look at those earned channels, right? You've just taken this poll. You know what you're kind of doing. And when you're doing that, be sure that you're looking at how consistent your brand is and how pronounced it is. And then if it's, if you've identified some gaps, there's nothing wrong in creating a strategy to address it. Invite more reviews, apply for more awards. Take a look at your HTML code on your career site and see what you can boost up to get those earned search results, and start developing that plan. So we've got an employer brand, and we understand the channels and how we're going to use those channels. talk about next. You know, we're not going to set it and forget it. If it doesn't run on autopilot, we've got to monitor and maintain it. Monitoring your brand is 100% about, first, you look and listen. And after you look and listen, and you look and listen again, and then you do it one more time for good measure, at that point is when you start participating in the conversation. Look and listen, and then participate. Keep an eye on those reviews. Look at the content and tag it and see what's bringing in the best possible talent. And really listen. Listen hard to what's being said. And then audit what's being said about your company externally across not just review sites, but your social platforms. And once you know who you are, then you can participate in the conversation. And when you start participating in that conversation after you've looked and listened, that's when you start to build trust. Reviews are an important part of listening to your audience. Review sites like Glassdoor really do provide crucial feedback about the organization and your hiring process. And without monitoring your reviews on Glassdoor and all these other review sites, because they're constantly growing, you know, more and more, it's easy to overlook your issues that your current employees or former employees might be experiencing and then sharing publicly. In fact, 83% of people polled in a Redshift research survey said that a company's online reviews impacted their decision to apply for a job. So these reviews are crucial to impacting candidate options. I mean, think about the last time you went and found a new job. Did you read the reviews? Did they matter? Of course they mattered, and they still matter. There was a blog post recently on Indeed that outlines the 3 categories and ways to monitor the engagement with your employer brand. And the first one is awareness. According to the author of the article, there are 3 kinds of awareness to look for. The first one is when followers like your post or your tweet or your update. So that tells you not only is this reinforcing that awareness, but then it also shows to their network that your brand was worth their time, or at least a few seconds of it. When you interact with a brand, people see it in their timeline and their activity feed. So then you're expanding your awareness. When followers comment or reply on a post, this is your prospective hire joining the conversation, asking the right questions. And are you responding? Are you asking the right questions to elicit an emotional or intelligent response? And when followers retweet or share or repost, despite all the disclaimers on everybody's Twitter handle, a retweet or share really does indicate some level of endorsement. So whatever you're posting, it should be helpful, valuable. You want to make sure that these posts are informing people and even entertaining and inspiring them so that they can share them with their networks and you can amplify your reach. The second piece is affinity. So are your prospects following your employer's brand career profile on their favorite social network? This is recruiting table stakes, right? So this is what we're looking at when we talk about establishing a relationship online. What are we sending out there? And what are we getting back from them? Getting your prospects inside your walled garden to opt in to hear from you. That's what that affinity means. They're following you. They're opting in. And our opportunity is to reward them. And lastly, are they applying? Talk to any of your recruiters, and you can guess, which one of these is their favorite, right? They want the applicants. But it's not just the people who end up in the rec that matter. Anyone who has clicked through 200 plus resumes from mostly unqualified applicants, they understand the value of getting the right skills matched into those recs and that interest. And it means that they need to be more informed about the process and the role in the company and what their future might look like as an employee. It's the conversion right before the ultimate metric to hire. And we're going to go deep into this in RM105. Maintaining a brand is like hygiene, right? So sometimes things shift in a business. We're always pivoting. We're always talking about things. And things happen. Like, for example, someone might write a viral blog post about your brand that's not all that favorable. You need to monitor that. And you need to see, based on that post, what needs to be adjusted in our employer brand. Is it still true? Is it still definable, defensible? Is it still differentiated? We have to document that brand. It's the number one takeaway from my talk today is to do this tomorrow. Document it, even if it's a one-pager. Make sure you're covering those 3 Ds because this is who you are. And then share and talk about it with everyone. Socialize it internally and externally. Make sure that you have that consensus. Develop a quick and dirty style guide. Make sure that your recruiters know the brand voice so when they're talking to you, to your target audience, about the brand, and it reinforces the brand. And when it comes to managing the reputation, you want to do these 3 things. You want to read, take it all in, find those commonalities because they exist, and document them. Response to a good or bad review? Don't know because we haven't read enough about it. Then reflect, right? Take a minute to understand, and when you see those commonalities, what's motivating that review? Understand, is this just a bad day or something systemic? And be accountable. Own those mistakes. Own those wins. If you're seeing these consistent mistakes, talk to your leadership. Take some time to reflect before you respond. And make sure that you're doing the responding to not just the awesome, right? We've got to talk about the not so awesome. We've got to respond. And is that something that's going to be useful? Like, always aim for dialogue. That's what people are on the internet for these days. And make sure that when you respond, that you're going to update all of the brand work internally. And we're going to cover a lot about reputation management in 103, which is the next class. And I'll do this tomorrow. Create a basic, even an Excel spreadsheet, reputation for Glassdoor, for example. Read the reviews and take a look at your baseline today. Then take a look for those commonalities. Where are you winning and where are there opportunities? And then talk about this internally. Talk to your leadership. Talk to your teams. Talk to your recruiters. And then make sure that you connect with legal and compliance before you go forth and respond. So in summary today, hopefully this gives you a start in making sure that your employer brand is really defined and that you have some capacity to start activating it across all of those channels consistency, and that you have a little bit of insight on how you're going to start managing that employer brand and monitoring it. And then I'll see you in 2 weeks for RM103, talking about social media. Then we'll talk a lot about media in general, so job marketing, and then we'll talk about data in 105. And then we're going to go deep into the 200s and 300s. You will be receiving an email after this course, and it's going to include all of our takeaway items. It'll link to the recording of the course. It will give you a link to the action items that do this tomorrow. And in fact, we'll put a link to that in the chat right here. And it'll also include a link to the practice quiz. And after we close out this session, I really want to implore you to please take a moment and provide us feedback on this session. We cannot make this better if you don't tell us how to make it better. So we really want to keep this growing. We really want to keep it valuable to you. So take 5 seconds out of your day and submit that survey result so we can make it better. I appreciate all of you, and I will see you guys very soon, 2 weeks from today. We'll talk social media. Have a great day.